Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update in English. My name is Todd, David Goldfinger, and here are today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. The leaders of the National Governors Association said Friday they're forming a bipartisan working group to come up with recommendations to stop mass shootings following the Texas school massacre in Uvalde, Texas. Reaching consensus could be a tall order given that the nation's governors have been divided along partisan lines on how to approach issues of gun control and school safety. Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, the group's chairman, and Democratic Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, the vice chair, told the White House in a letter that they will convene a group of 6 to 10 governors with a particular focus on making schools safe. Next news. The New York the New York Attorney General's lawsuit against the National Rifle Association is no mere witch hunt. A New York judge ruled Friday in dismissing the gun rights advocacy group's claims that the case is a political vendetta. Manhattan Judge Joel M. Cohen's decision means the nearly 2-year-long legal fight can continue. The ruling comes after mass shootings last month in New York and Texas reanimated debate over U.S. gun policy and refocused attention on the NRA. The New York case began when James, a Democrat, filed a lawsuit that accused some top NRA executives of financial improprieties and sought to dissolve the group. The Attorney General's job includes oversight of nonprofit organizations incorporated in the New York state where the NRA was chartered in the year 1871. Next news. President Joe Biden said Saturday he was escalating federal assistance for New Mexico as it faces its largest wildfire in recorded state history. The fire began when prescribed burns that were set by the U.S. Forest Service, a standard practice that's intended to clear out combustible underbrush. However, the burns spread out of control, destroying hundreds of homes across a 500 square mile or 1,300 square kilometer range since early April, I believe, of this year, according to federal officials. In quotes, we need to be sure this doesn't happen again, end quotes. Biden said during a visit to an emergency operations center in Santa Fe. Next news. A withering report on sexual abuse and cover up in the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the USA. Viral video in which a woman confronts her pastor at an independent Christian for sexually preying on her when she was a teen. A TV documentary exposing sexual abuse of children in Amish and Mennonite communities. You might call it hashtag Church2, TOO, or 2.0, survivors of sexual assault in in the church, in church settings, and their advocates have been calling on churches for years to admit to the extent of their abuses in the midst and to implement reforms. In 2017, that movement acquired the hashtag church2, derived from the wider hashtag Me Too movement, which called out sexual predators in many sectors of society. God help us. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV, plenty 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. Ahead of a potential presidential bid, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem handily won the Republican nomination last week for a second term. Many of the candidates she hoped to elect to the state house, however, did not have such a good night. She had hoped to replace contrarians with personal allies in the Republican controlled legislature, which has consistently defied her wishes. So the governor rallied behind roughly a dozen candidates who challenged incumbents. Two-thirds of Noem's favorites lost. The setback was a reminder that while endorsements often draw attention and financial resources, they do not always translate into support from voters. It's a lesson that Donald J. Trump, Noam's ally, is learning as he falls short, notably in Georgia, in trying to punish Republicans who have crossed him. You're fired. In the GOP primary last month. Next news. Thousands of people rallied on the National Mall and across the United States on Saturday in a renewed push for gun control measures after recent deadly mass shootings from Uvalde, Texas to Buffalo, New York, that's upstate New York, that activists say should compel Congress to act. Enough is enough, in quotes. District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser told the second March of Our Lives rally in her city, in quotes, I speak as a mayor, a mom, and I speak for millions of Americans and America's mayors who are demanding that Congress do its job. And its job is to protect us, to protect our children from gun violence. End quotes. Speaker after speaker in Washington called on senators who are seen as a major excuse me, I gotta get this word right, impediment to legislation to act or face being voted out of office. Next news. Jim Marchant has been traveling the country repeating the false claims that the 2020 election was stolen from former President Donald J. Trump and trying to make the case that electronic voting equipment should be tossed out in favor of ballots cast and counted by hand. Now, the businessman and former state lawmaker is on the primary ballot Tuesday in Nevada, the perennial presidential battleground state. His goal his goal is to become the state's top election official. Marchant is one of the several Republicans across the country running to oversee the next presidential election while denying the outcome of the last one. Oismir. Next news. Libyan officials returned to the Egyptian capital Sunday for a third round of talks on constitutional amendments for elections. The North African nation once again finds itself at a political impasse, with two rival administrations claiming legitimacy. The talks in Cairo come on the heels of clashes between rival militias that caused residents of the Libyan capital of Tripoli to panic and revived nightmares of previous bouts of fighting in the chaos stricken nation. Lawmakers from Libya's east based parliament and the High Council of State, an advisory body from Western Libya, began the UN brokered negotiations amid concerted international pressure on the two chambers to put their disputes aside and agree on the election's legal basis. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Stay. Hello, and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you so much for being with us. The leader of the US backed opposition in Venezuela was physically attacked Saturday during a visit to a rural community, according to members of his parallel government, who accused a group of ruling party associates of carrying out the assault. A photo accompanying the opposition statement shows Juan Guaido, I hope that's right, being held back as people gather around him and someone rips his shirt off. The parallel government said the group, which was associated with the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, known as the PSUV, quote, and assaulted Guaido, who is on a tour around the South American country seeking to unite and organize his party ahead of a planned primary election. Next news. The head of the World Trade Organization predicted a bumpy and rocky road as the trade body opened its highest level meeting in 4.5 years Sunday with issues like pandemic preparedness, food insecurity against the backdrop of Russia's war in Ukraine, and overfishing of the world's seas on the agenda. At a time when some experts question WTO's future and relevance, Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala hopes the meeting involves more than 120 ministers from the organization's 164 member countries, yields progress toward reducing inequality and ensuring fair and free trade. Next news. Next news, please. Venice's Jewish ghetto is considered the first in Europe and one of the first in the world, and a new effort is underway to preserve its 16th century synagogues for the Jews who have remained and tourists who just passing by. For nearly 2 years, restorers have been peeling away paint and discovering the original foundation of 3 of the ghetto's synagogues, which are considered the only Renaissance synagogues still in use. Art historian David Landau said, Landau is spearheading the fundraising effort to restore the synagogues and nearby buildings, both for Venice's small Jewish community, which numbers around, not even 450 people probably, and for tourists who can visit them on a guided tour through the Jewish Museum of Venice in Italy. Next news. China's defense minister accused the United States on Sunday of trying to hijack the support of countries in the Asia-Pacific region to turn them against Beijing, saying Washington is seeking to advance its own interests, in quotes, under the guise of multilateralism, end quotes. Defense Minister General Wei Fenghe lashed out at U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, rejecting his, in quotes, smearing accusation, end quotes, the day before at the Shangri-La dialogue that China was causing instability with its claim to the self-governing island of Taiwan and its increased military activity in the area. Austin had stressed the need for multilateral partnerships with nations in the Indo-Pacific, which Wei suggested was an attempt to back China into a corner. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Peace. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name's Todd. Here's a continuation of the news. Thank you so much for watching. North Korea test fired suspected artillery pieces into the sea on Sunday. South Korea's military said, days after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for greater defense capability to cope with outside threats. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement that it detected several flight trajectories believed to be North Korean artillery on Sunday morning. Okay. It said South Korea maintains a firm military readiness in close coordination with the United States amid boosted surveillance on North Korea during a National Security Council meeting convened to discuss the supported launches. South Korean officials expressed concern that North Korea is ungrading weapons systems that pose a direct threat to South Korea and reaffirmed they would sternly deal with such North Korean efforts, according to South Korea's presidential office. Next news. Sri Lanka may be compelled to buy more oil from Russia as the island nation hunts desperately for fuel amid an unprecedented economic crisis. The newly appointed prime minister said, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said he would first look to other sources but would be open to buying more crude, I guess crude oil, from Moscow. Western nations largely have cut off energy imports from Russia in line with sanctions over its war on Ukraine. In a wide-ranging interview with the Associated Press on Saturday, Wickremesinghe also indicated he would be willing to accept more financial help from China, despite his country's mounting debt. And while he acknowledged that Sri Lanka's current predicament is of, in quotes, its own making, he said the war in Ukraine is making it even worse. And that dire food shortages would continue until 2024. He said Russia had also offered wheat to Sri Lanka. Next news. Love this story. Fans outside New York's Beacon Theater were cheering for Taylor Swift before she arrived, belting her songs before she stepped on stage. That energy remained throughout her stop at the 21st Tribeca Festival on Saturday, where Swift discussed transitioning into director's chair, the nuances of visual storytelling, and the possibility of future film projects with Mike Mills, writer and director of, in quotes, come on, and 20, in quotes, 20th century women, end quotes, before surprising fans with special guests and an acoustic performance. It wasn't Taylor Swift's first time on a film festival stage. Her Netflix documentary, Miss Americana, premiered at Sundance in 2020. But it was her first time as director. And as Taylor Swift and Mike Mills compared and dissected their processes, it was clear that it was an honor. She didn't take it lightly. She didn't take it lightly. It's an honor, when you're made director. Next news. The Tampa Bay Lightning's bid for a three-peat is alive and well, with Captain Steven Stamkos leading the way. The two-time defending champions beat the New York Rangers 2-1 in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Final Saturday night, securing a berth in the Stanley Cup Final for the third straight year. Woo! In quotes, it's going to be tough to get out of the moment and look back and realize what a special group we have here, because there's still some games to be played. End quotes, Stamkos said. In quotes, you're still not at the end of our goal, but in saying that this group is pretty amazing and pretty special. End quotes. Thank you for watching. This has been the daily global English news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Okay? Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. That means Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. Also, smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news, views, and editorials. Our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA, Android, Millennium News Google. www.millenniumtv24.com. Check out the music of Todd Goldfinger. Tell your device to play, and please stay with Millennium News TV 24/7. We love you. Mwah! God bless.